If your land does not have a properly drafted deed of assignment, then legally you might not be the owner of that property no matter how much you have spent. Now in this video, I am going to be explaining what a deed of assignment is, the details contained in a deed of assignment, and how important it is in any property transaction you are doing as an investor in real estate. Now, a deed of assignment is a legal document that transfers ownership from a seller, also known legally as the assigner, to a buyer who is known legally as the assignee of that property. So the deed of assignment transfers ownership from a seller to a buyer. Now, since this is a legal document, you are going to be needing the services of a property lawyer. A property lawyer is a lawyer who specializes in real estate transactions, right? So as a seller, a property lawyer is going to help you draft a legally binding deed of assignment, which will include all the necessary details that must be contained in the deed of assignment. And as a buyer, a property lawyer will help you review that deed of assignment to make sure that it does not have any errors, that deed of assignment represents and protects all your interests as a buyer. Now, in a deed of assignment, there are details that must be contained in this deed of assignment. So, you have a deed of assignment, there are details you should be looking out for in that deed of assignment. Number one on the list is the name and address of both the buyer and the seller of that property. Their name and address must be clearly written in that deed of assignment. Secondly is the recital. The recital is a brief history, a brief ownership history of that property, starting from the root title. The root title is the original owners of that property, of that land. It could be a community, it could be a family. So, from a brief history, from that root title up to the seller who is selling that property to you, right? So, that brief history must be contained in that deed of assignment so that it can be legally binding. Now, number three is the description of that property. The description of that property will include the size of the property, the survey plan number of that property, the location of that property, where it is located, the name of the community, the name of the state, the name of the local government, the description of that property describing where exactly it is located, right? So that is a very important information in that deed of assignment. Number four on the list is the amount that was paid for that property. The amount that was paid, whether it's 1 million naira, whether it's 5 million naira, whether it's 100 million naira, the amount that was paid is going to be clearly written in that deed of assignment. Now, another important detail in a deed of assignment is the operating clause. Now, the operating clause is a legal statement transferring ownership from the buyer to the seller. So it's something along the lines of the assigner hereby assigns to the assignee the title, the interests, and the benefits of this particular property. Something along those lines, but more detailed than what I just gave as an example, right? Another important detail in your deed of assignment, number 6, is the covenants. Now, these covenants are agreements made by both the seller and the buyer. So, for instance, the seller is making a promise that the property is selling to you has good title, that it is free from encumbrances, that he has paid all the necessary dues and fees he's supposed to pay on that property, right? While for the buyer, it's also an agreement that you are going to go ahead to perfect the title of that property and that you are going to pay all the necessary ground rents that you are supposed to pay for that property. Now, another important detail in your deed of assignment is the indemnity clause, right? Now, the indemnity clause is basically the seller making a promise that they are going to compensate the buyer if any issues arise, maybe in a case where the land appears to be fraudulent. If a case comes up in the future where maybe the seller has not paid all the necessary fees he's supposed to pay, or that the title is not accurate, so it's the seller making a promise that they are going to compensate the buyer in case of any issues that might arise in the future concerning that property that he's selling to you. Now, finally, the name, address, and occupation of all the witnesses involved in this property transaction. So the lawyers, the buyer, the seller, probably the agent, any credible individual who was involved in this property transaction, you're going to have their name, their addresses, and their occupations, right? Now that you have a deed of assignment, the journey does not stop there. You are going to need to register this deed of assignment in the land registry, right? So to register this deed of assignment, you have to go to the land registry and apply for a governor's consent. A governor's consent is a legal approval validating the transfer of ownership from one individual to another, so from a seller to a buyer, right? It protects this property you have just acquired for millions of naira from legal disputes. So it's basically the governor saying that he is aware of this property transaction from Mr. A to Mr. B, right? So that is what a governor's consent is. Now, when you get the governor's consent, you are going to now register this deed of assignment, and then it becomes a registered deed of assignment. The registered deed of assignment is naturally the end of the track of a registered property. So once, let us say you bought a property that has a C of O from an individual, the person is going to give you a deed of assignment, right? Now, that deed of assignment, if you register that deed of assignment, it is going to become a registered deed of assignment. Now, your deed of assignment is also a very important document when applying for your C of O, your certificate of occupancy, right? Because if your deed of assignment is a legal document transferring ownership from the seller to the buyer, you cannot apply for your C of O, your certificate of occupancy, without a proof of transfer of ownership, which in this case and in most cases, your deed of assignment, right? So you're going to need that deed of assignment to apply for a C of O. That is why in any property transaction you are doing, make sure you get a deed of assignment, right? There are other forms of transfers of ownership, like a deed of conveyance and others, right? But in most cases, it's a deed of assignment. This deed of assignment might sound like just another document, but it is a very important and concrete document in any property transaction you are making. It is going to protect you from legal disputes, from encumbrances, from issues that come either from troublesome individuals or from communities, right? So you're going to need not just to get this deed of assignment, but also to perfect it, to register it with the government. I remain your trusted real estate consultant, Obinna Chikis, here in the city of Enugu. For further inquiries, questions, or verified properties here in the city of Enugu, do well to reach out to the number on your screen or message me through the link in my bio. See you on the next one.